Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter. Hello, and welcome to the Ident Review, the show where we have a good look and chat about the various television idents that we've come to know and love over the years. And for this instalment, we're heading over to the other side to look at one of its splinter channels, ITV3. Launched in late 2004, ITV3 was the latest offering from ITV in a constantly changing and growing digital TV landscape. It became known for offering repeats of some of the other side's most iconic dramas, including its biggest soap opera, Coronation Street. In 2006, when ITV1 underwent a major rebrand, the splinter channels would similarly follow suit. Now, we've touched on some of ITV3's earliest idents in the 100th episode of the Ident Review, but today, the focus will be on how ITV3 would change in 2006 alongside its sister channels, and we'll start with our first sequence of the day, Ladybird.
How do you prosecute a suspected murderer when there's no body and very little evidence? The UK premiere of Law & Order Trial by Jury is tonight at 9 here on ITV3, and now it's Kojak.
A very interesting concept. The theme of this particular batch of idents was to see the bigger picture. Well, this sequence arguably does the opposite, focusing in on the picture to observe the finer details. We see that the setting is a clock face, and as the hands tick on by, a ladybird is clearly visible, resting on one of the hands. A ladybird was a great choice to include. The bright red adorned with the black spot stands out well amongst the more black and white tones of the clock, and the ticking hands are quite therapeutic to watch when zoomed in like this. I also appreciate how the soundtrack incorporates the ticking clock, fitting in nicely with the overall beats and patterns of what we hear. It's one of those soothing idents, designed to draw you in and make you feel at ease and relaxed for the upcoming programme. I do think that if we're zooming in, we could have seen more than just this one ladybird, but it's a minor nitpick. Far from a disaster, but I don't think it'll be an ident that I'll instantly be able to recall and remember. Moving swiftly onwards, let's take a look at our second sequence today, Rose.
Over on ITV1 now, as the deadly virus moves ever closer to Britain, tonight with Trevor McDonald quizzes the experts about bird flu. Here on ITV3, Hannay.
Visually striking, but I have mixed thoughts. Unsurprisingly, the image of a rose is the dominant visual stimulus here, and to focus on positives first, it looks stunning. The way it's been photographed in the different angles up close that we see, it really is fantastic. We see the rose experience different external factors, such as water adorning its petals, being ready for the chop, and being set alight. Now, this particular elemental struggle I feel kinda mixed about. On one hand, as a visual, it looks great. The orange embers from the fire contrast well with the bright defined red of the rose, and the process of watching it burn is oddly satisfying. However, I personally am not one for seeing flowers destroyed like this, whether it be accidental or intentional. So in the context of a TV ident, yeah, I think it works alright, but it's not one that I'd be all that keen seeing that often. Also, this seeing the bigger picture theme must be referring to finer detail because, like with the ladybird, we're zooming in to get a better look. I wonder if all of the sequences will be like this. Let's find out with our next ident today, Shell.
An abandoned lorry, 5 dead bodies, and a man on the run all add up to a mystery for Jack Shepherd as Wycliffe. That's in an hour's time. First on ITV3, Quincy.
Now, this one I really like. The premise is quite simple. We see a long winding staircase which, as we zoom out, gradually morphs and transforms into being a beautifully designed shell lying amongst the pebbles on a beach. It's often said that the simple concepts work the strongest, and out of the three we've looked at so far, I think I'd agree. Firstly, the colours used are gorgeous. The beige-like tones of the staircase pairing beautifully with the different shades of the shell, and the winding nature of the design translates wonderfully also. The music too fits the piece to a T, a bare-bones piano refrain which immediately translates that sense of calm, just as walking along a beachfront is likely to do. My only minor nitpick would be right at the centre of the screen. When we see the staircase, the central circle is this sort of dark hole-looking visual. However, when we're taken to the beach, I feel that darkness is sort of phased out far too quickly. It still all works, but I think the transition could have allowed for a few more seconds just to make it that little bit smoother. But in terms of the theme of this batch, seeing the bigger picture, this is the first of the sequences which I feel truly embodies that, still retaining detail, but zooming out rather than in to show us the true scope. I also haven't discussed my thoughts on the ITV3 logo, which rebranded also in 2006. It follows the same visual design as its sister channels, with ITV being within a coloured box, red this time around, and with the number next to it. It's simple, some would say a little dull and lacklustre, and on its own, I would probably agree. However, in the idents we've seen so far, the ITV3 logo fits in perfectly, and actually demonstrates one of the strongest correlations of any TV channel in this era. So the shell is my new favourite, but will the next ident quickly topple it? Let's find out as we look at Thread.
A relaxing holiday in Cornwall turns into a complex murder investigation for Agatha Christie's Poirot. That's at 8. First, new to ITV3, due south.
Again, another mixed one for me. The strong parts I like about this are the visuals once more. The thread unravelling, seeing it be woven through the needle and then the material, it's all very soothing and tranquil. However, this one lets itself down for me in a few places. First of all, I don't think we spend enough time on each aspect that I just described. They're quick and almost blink and you'll miss it moments in places. Had each part been given that little bit of extra time just to slow down and really show us the process, then I think this could have been an easy favourite. And again, we're back to close-ups and seeing the more intricate detail, which is great, but again, does it spell the bigger picture? Regardless of that, this isn't a bad ident at all, but it's another one that I feel, had it been able to tweak a few elements, it could have been absolutely excelled, just as the staircase and shell did beforehand. We're coming towards our penultimate ident now, so let's see if we can be wowed by the woman.
Tomorrow at 10, as part of Girls' Night on ITV3, Caroline Catt stars in Murder in Suburbia. But back to tonight, and a change to the advertised episode of Ruth Rendell's Inspector Wexford.
Now, that is seeing the bigger picture. We observe a woman packing her things into a small suitcase before we cut to the open country, for which she is heading towards an unknown destination. I'm glad that, like the shell, we're starting somewhere small and then focusing on somewhere bigger, though the hard cut doesn't gel as well with me as the transition did of the former. I know I praised the various colour schemes of some of the previous idents, but I'm starting to notice a pattern. How all of these sequences sort of have this sepia-like tone to them, which, don't get me wrong, for certain idents or channels, works a treat, and ITV has demonstrated that it can make the look work too. But in terms of using it or similar colours for every single ident you put out, I'm not so sure about that. Back to this specific sequence, despite my praises for it, I actually think it comes out as one of the least interesting idents of the entire batch. Now, had this mainly been, say, a part 1 of a whole story interconnected via the use of idents, then that could have been insanely interesting. I'm not sure if that concept has ever been attempted in idents specifically, but I'm fascinated by this woman's journey. Why is she packing these things? Where is she going? Is it for someone? Or just to experience an adventure? So whilst it may seem a bit avant-garde, especially for 2006, had this been part of a story, I think it could have been immense. But now we've come to the final ident of the day, so let's hope that we can finish off on a winner. So let's take a trip into the woods.
If you've enjoyed Two Ronnie's Day on ITV3, please stay with us for an eventful family day out by the sea at 9. And it's the picnic at 10. But here they are again, Ronnie's Corbett and Barker.
I hate to say it, but another case I feel of missed potential. We start by seeing some blinds, which are quickly pulled back to reveal a scene in the woods. Two people meet and embrace before quickly breaking off and going their separate ways. Now, like with the previous ident, this has the makings of being an intriguing story. So, is someone watching them from behind the blinds? Who are these people, and why are they meeting? Why is it so brief? Had these been continued in future idents, then I think ITV3 could have really made that concept its own, especially with its reputation of repeating high-quality ITV drama. The sepia tone is once again dominant, which, I'll be honest, by this point, I'm getting a little bit sick of. Don't get me wrong, I bet some viewers love seeing sepia-like colour palettes, but I can only take them in small doses. The music, I think, does a great job of fitting the scene, sounding nice and mysterious, lending towards the potential situation that could be taking place between these two people. But again, like with the woman ident, I just feel like it comes off as being a bit lackluster in how it's delivered. It's intriguing for sure, but with no follow-up and nothing more in the actual sequence, what is there? It's a shame that ITV3 didn't try and break new ground for Idents with a linked storytelling structure, as what we do have screams for further development, leading me to my overall thoughts on this lot from 2006. ITV3 may not be the most well-known or most watched channel amongst the ITV brand, but from the get-go with this set, you can tell that they put the effort in. Whilst not every ident matches the idea of seeing the bigger picture, each of them attempts to carve out their own identity, as any good sequence should. My favourite remains the shell variant. I just think it embodies the overall theme the best, and just flows great in terms of a visual and audio sense. Not to say the others are unworthy, but I think going forward I'm going to struggle to find them all that memorable. Missed opportunities are abundant, and I recognise that hindsight is a wonderful thing, but with ambiguous sequences such as Woman and Woods, you have ample opportunity to take them that one step further. So whilst I think ITV3's look from 2006 does work in some ways, ultimately it fails to reach its full potential, and will probably continue to drift away in the memories of those who grew up with it in this era. And so that brings us to the end of another episode of the Ident Review. If you enjoyed this look back at the 2006 Idents from ITV3, then please leave a like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to the channel for lots more Ident related content. I've been Martyn from AMTV, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Jen Samantha Pringle, Kelly is Live, Tracy Smith, Hooks Media, Ben Freeman, Ethan Carberry Holt, The Welsh Lady, Bruce Danton, The Broken Kitsumanoid, and Cooking at Nans and DIY, our AMTV staff members.